Imagine this. You are standing in a crowded train station at dawn, the pale blue of morning spilling through vaulted windows. A stranger steps from the blur of travelers and greets you as if you were the only soul alive. Eyes locked, smile incandescent, words wrapped in velvet. You feel seen, chosen, extraordinary. Yet somewhere beneath that sudden warmth, your intuition flinches like a candle in wind. Carl Jung once warned, beware of those who stroke your ego to silence the cries of their own emptiness. If you ignore the tremor, if you hush the inner voice that senses danger, that stranger's devotion can become a blade. Keep listening, because the red flags we uncover today may spare you a lifetime of bleeding. The moment a narcissist enters your orbit, they arrive dressed in your unlived dreams. They study your language, echo your beliefs, and project back an almost mystical compatibility. It feels like destiny because it is weaponized serendipity, engineered through micro-observations and lightning-fast pattern matching. Jung called such dazzling adaptation the persona, an archetypal mask designed to seduce the collective and hide the fragmented self beneath. At first, the persona is intoxicating. You laugh at the same jokes, finish each other's sentences, and speak about the universe as though you crafted its stars together. Yet every time you lean in, the mask brightens while the eyes behind it grow hungrier. The narcissist's persona is a solar flare. Bask in it too long, and you'll be blinded to the scorched earth it leaves. As the relationship accelerates, what psychologists now call love bombing detonates in full. Invitations pour in, weekend getaways, tickets to concerts you never mentioned liking, elaborate plans for holidays months away. Compliments arrive by the dozen, each one tailored to the insecurity you hide from the world. They tell you that your kindness is rare, that your intelligence is unrivaled, that your presence alone makes them better. You bloom beneath the praise, not realizing you're growing in soil they intend to withdraw. Jung wrote, "The brighter the light, the darker the shadow." Love bombing is that dazzling light. Its shadow is control, because once you crave their affirmation, they own the dimmer switch to your self-worth. In the beginning, every conversation revolves around your future together. Shared apartments, creative collaborations, children whose names they already chose. This phenomenon, future faking, is the theatrical promise of eternity used to lock your imagination to theirs. The narcissist sketches grand murals of what life could be, yet those murals dissolve whenever you step close enough to touch the paint. Jung observed that projection is a natural function of psyche, but he cautioned that unconfronted projections imprison both sender and receiver. When a narcissist projects a fantasy, they are borrowing your vitality to animate the parts of themselves they have disowned. The trade feels romantic until you realize you're financing their self-image with your emotional savings. Slowly, the contour of their grandiosity emerges, sculpted from fragile stone. They confide that colleagues just don't recognize real talent, that ex-partners were threatened by brilliance, that the world conspires to dim their exceptional glow. At first you empathize. Everyone craves to feel special. But when every story ends with them as underappreciated royalty, orchestras cue in your mind, red flag, overture. Jung explained, a man who is unconscious of himself behaves in a blind, instinctual way. Narcissistic grandiosity is less true confidence and more a desperate plaster shielding the void beneath. They cling to spotlighted narratives because the darkness within feels bottomless. To survive, they draft you into the role of eternal spotlight operator. Next come the micro-criticisms, tiny barbs disguised as playful teasing or sage advice. You look good in that outfit, but maybe lose the jacket. It hides your shape. Why are you so quiet? People might think you're boring. Each remark is a pin's prick, individually ignorable, collectively hemorrhagic. Over weeks, your subconscious records these slights like seismic data, and the graph of confidence slopes downward. Jung described this internalization as introjection. The psyche adopts foreign judgments without digestion, and those judgments mutate into your inner critic. By the time you notice, you're policing your laughter, your clothing, your ambition, all to avoid new pinpricks, unaware that compliance only sharpens the needles. Then the gaslighting begins. Memories become malleable under their revisionist gaze. You recall an argument, they insist it never happened. You remember tears, they recall hysterics out of nowhere. Your certainty dissolves like ink dropped in water. Gaslighting succeeds because humans need narrative coherence. When someone we love contradicts our recollection, we'd rather abandon memory than risk connection. But Jung insisted it is better to confront the shadow than idolize its mask. Keeping a reality journal, dates, screenshots, voice memos of your feelings creates a lighthouse of objectivity. When storms of confusion roll in, the narcissist will try to dim that lighthouse, guard the bulb. Simultaneously, a subtle empathy vacuum expands. Milestones you celebrate elicit lukewarm applause, while your setbacks become footnotes in their monologue. If the spotlight isn't on them, they wander. When you need comfort, their responses feel scripted. That's tough, but have you heard what happened to me? Jung posited that empathy arises from the transcendent function, the ability to step beyond one's ego and meet the other at a soulful intersection. For a narcissist whose ego fortress is under siege by shame, leaving the gates is intolerable. Thus, empathy remains performative at best, absent at worst. Over time, you learn to minimize your joys and mute your pains. Another red flag fluttering against a darkening sky. Boundaries, however politely expressed, ignite drama. You ask for an evening to finish a personal project. They appear at your door with takeaway and wounded eyes, accusing you of pushing them away. You request privacy for your phone. Suddenly, you're suspected of betrayal. Every know you voice chips paint off their idealized portrait of themselves as the flawless partner. Jung wrote, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." Narcissists weaponize that ambiguity, twisting your healthy need for autonomy into proof of disloyalty. Each time you concede, the boundary lines redraw closer to your core until one day you can't find them at all. Triangulation soon follows. They compare you to an ex who understood them better, or praise a coworker who never makes drama. Perhaps they introduce a third party, friend, sibling, even therapist, to corroborate that you're overreacting. The psychological pincer maneuver destabilizes you while lining them with validation. Inside, their fragile self reels from ordinary insecurity. Outside, they orchestrate competition to feed a starving ego. The most potent defense is radical detachment. Exit the contest entirely. If applause becomes a currency whose scarcity keeps you hustling, walk off the stage. Remember Jung's counsel, where love rules, there is no will to power. Real partnership has no need for spectators. Projection intensifies next. They accuse you of infidelity when their own DMs overflow with flirtation. They label you selfish when you dare request rest amid their demands. Jung famously declared, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." For the narcissist, however, irritation is never internalized. It is catapulted outward. They cannot bear the cognitive dissonance of their flaws, so they staple those flaws to your identity. If such accusations arise without evidence, pause. Ask whose narrative benefits from this inversion. Often you'll find their confession buried inside their condemnation. A hallmark stage, idealize, devalue, discard, arrives like seasonal weather. During idealization, you are divine. They text at sunrise, surprise you with playlists of songs that mention your name, and post portraits of your entwined hands captioned with eternity. Then, inexplicably, you tumble into devaluation. Your ideas annoy them, your laughter grates, your presence suffocates. You labor to recapture the earlier glory, unaware the tide is beyond your command. Finally, discard. They disappear for hours, days, maybe weeks, returning with flimsy excuses or new lovers in tow. The cycle repeats until your self-esteem erodes to sand. Jung advised, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Surviving this cycle requires letting roots sink into truth, accepting the hellish realization that the love you felt was real only to you. Many survivors describe a bodily intuition long before the mind accepts danger, heart palpitations when their phone rings, digestive knots before dates, insomnia despite exhaustion. The body, Jung suggested, is the unconscious speaking through flesh. Ignoring somatic red flags empowers psychological ones to flourish. Begin listening. Note which sensations accompany which interactions. Your nervous system keeps better score than your rationalizations. Escaping a narcissist is less a breakup and more an exorcism. They resist closure because indefinite attachment secures supply. Expect hoovering, sudden texts declaring epiphanies, gifts left at your door, apologies laced with blame. I'm sorry you felt hurt. Hoovering capitalizes on nostalgia and latent hope. To withstand it, curate a witness circle, friends, therapist, mentor, who reinforce reality when emotional tremors make yesterday's trauma feel like tomorrow's promise. Jung affirmed, loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important. Let your witness circle become translators of your pain into validation. Rebuilding afterward resembles physical therapy for the soul. You may doubt every new admirer, scrutinize compliments for hooks, interpret kindness as camouflage. This hypervigilance is normal but not permanent. Journaling restores narrative integrity. Meditation trains awareness to notice thought spirals without spiraling further. Creative expression externalizes the story, freeing your psyche from looping reruns. Jung's process of individuation, integrating shadow and light, becomes your roadmap. By meeting your own unloved parts with compassion, you inoculate yourself against future exploitation. A narcissist thrives where self-abandonment lives. Fill that vacancy with radical self-regard, and their oxygen supply runs thin. Remember, too, that empathy for narcissistic origins need not translate into tolerance of narcissistic harm. Many narcissists suffered early wounds of neglect, overindulgence, or emotional enmeshment. Understanding this lineage can foster forgiveness without permitting trespass. Jung noted, the shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Your recipe must prioritize safety and growth, not rescuing someone chained to their reflection. Throughout history, myth warns us of such seductions. Think of Echo, who vanishes loving Narcissus, of Icarus, soaring on borrowed wings until wax melts, of Dracula, charming yet parasitic. These tales persist because they mirror psychological truth. When fascination eclipses discernment, destruction follows. Your task is not to abandon wonder, but to anchor it with wisdom. Let the heart marvel while the mind measures. If you are currently ensnared, know this: you are not weak for staying, only human for hoping. Healing begins the moment hope pivots from changing them to saving you. Whisper to yourself Jung's declaration, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Then choose. Block numbers without ceremony. Delete threads that lure you into rereading. Donate gifts that whisper memories. Each decisive act is a brick in the boundary wall separating past manipulation from future freedom. As you regain clarity, revisit the red flags with fresh eyes. Love that escalates at runaway speed, promises painted in neon yet evaporating at dawn. Self-aggrandizement coupled with chronic victimhood. Jokes that slice, memories rewritten, boundaries breached, competitions staged without your consent. Accusations that feel like deja vu turned inside out. Catalog them, not as shackles of regret, but as lanterns lighting your path forward. Knowledge converts pain into armor. Every scar is a rune inscribed with survival. Eventually, you will meet people who feel like clear water after years of drinking smoke. Their compliments invite no obligation. Their stories leave room for yours. Their disappointments are discussed, not detonated. When that peace feels unfamiliar, remember, unfamiliar is not unsafe. Uncommon is not unreal. You are recalibrating from chaos to calm. Give yourself permission to dwell there. To anchor this transformation, craft daily rituals, morning affirmations that root you in self-trust, evening reflections that harvest gratitude, weekly check-ins with accountability partners. Jung believed symbols and ritual communicate directly with the unconscious, bypassing rational resistance. Lighting a candle to represent regained autonomy, for example, can speak louder to the psyche than pages of logical reassurance. One final challenge remains: forgiving yourself. Survivors often writhe under self-blame. How did I not see? Why did I stay? Yet judgment prolongs bondage. Compassion, paradoxically, unlocks accountability. Acknowledge participation without flogging innocence. You entered with open heart, not malicious intent. The lesson is vigilance, not cynicism. So, if anyone tells you healing is linear, smile gently and walk on. Some days you will sprint, others you will carry yourself inch by inch. Just keep moving toward integration. Jung concluded, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Narcissistic entanglement seeks to rewrite that destiny. Reclaim authorship. As this journey closes, return to the station where our story began. Picture that stranger waving amid the crowd, their aura still radiant. This time you feel the tremor and you listen. You nod politely, but your feet remain planted. You know your worth, your boundaries, your shadows. The stranger's smile falters, searching for a seam in your armor, finds none, and recedes into morning's blur. You step onto your train, heart steady, future widening like sunlit tracks. Before we part, carry these words like compass points. Recognize swiftly, protect fiercely, heal deeply, love wisely, and when doubt whispers in lonely hours, recall Jung's enduring wisdom. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Today, by tracing red flags, not to fear but to consciousness, you have awakened a sentinel within. May it guard your voyage, and may your voyage illuminate paths for others still shrouded in the narcissist's night. Thank you for listening. If this message resonated, share it with someone who needs the lantern. Leave a comment describing the red flag that struck hardest. Your story might become another's turning point. For more psychology-driven empowerment, subscribe and journey deeper into self-mastery. Until our next encounter, choose becoming over-belonging, and never again trade your light for someone else's shadow.